Hi, this is Kevin. Right now I'm waiting to do something that I'm supposed to go do. But in the meantime, I figured I would use this time in my vehicle to talk a little bit about the 3 Disney films that I think are the most underrated. I am a big Disney fan, and I am also an artist, and so I find the bringing of those two things together great. So there are some artistically strong films that I think a lot of you may not know about. The first one that I want to talk about is a relatively rare film that most of you probably haven't even heard of. It is Victory Through Air Power. This unheralded film was one that was created in the early days of World War II, where Disney really wanted to encourage the U.S. government to start using air bombing for World War II. He felt that it was a important strategic method for the United States to win the war. And during those days when a lot of people were still a little bit skeptical about what the airplane's place in warfare was going to be, he felt strongly that the U.S. government needed to listen. So he actually put his money where his mouth is and paid for this film. It's a pretty strong little film. The beginning section talks a little bit about the history of aviation, and then it goes on to use limited animation, which is a stylized form of animation, to show how the United States should utilize this method in order to win World War II. And it uses a lot of graphs and charts and simple animation to put across very complex ideas. And this was done years before you had UPA, which is another animation studio, started using stylized animation that a lot of people oohed and awed about in the 1950s. Disney used it well beforehand. So it's a pretty strong little film, well-made little film, and one that also shows that Disney was a patriot. Do I think that it really encouraged the U.S. to utilize air power in the war? Not really. Most evidence shows the U.S. was leaning in that direction anyway, but it was still shown to the president, and so you could argue that maybe Disney influenced the war just a little bit, at least in that area. The second film that I think is really unheralded is The Rescuers Down Under. The Rescuers was a film that did pretty well in the 1970s, and was kind of forgotten for quite a bit. They came out with the sequel in the late 80s, and it was a pretty darn good little sequel. It had pretty strong animation. There were some new characters that were presented that I think really added to the overall flair of the Rescuers universe. Of course, the 2 main mouse characters are strong characters, and that's why they brought them back. And in general, I think that it was just a relatively strong film. In fact, I think it was better than the original Rescuers film. But the problem is it came in between a couple of big films in the Disney Renaissance, The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast. And then several other films that were part of the Renaissance really brought the whole musical thing into the fore for Disney. And unfortunately, most people did not have the same appreciation for the Rescuers Down Under that I do. It's been kind of forgotten over time, and I think that it was done kind of unfairly. I think it really deserves a little bit more respect than what it got. The last film that I'd like to talk about is The Three Caballeros. The Three Caballeros is a film that came out during the package era of the early 1940s, or I should say mid-1940s, when Disney was not quite in a place yet where he had enough money to make full-blown features that were going to cost quite a bit for animating for 3 or 4 years. He needed to turn out films quick. And so The Three Caballeros was actually created as part of a couple of films that Disney was contracted to do with the U.S. government that was going to celebrate Latin American countries. At that time, the U.S. was afraid that they were going to lose Latin American countries to the Axis powers in World War II because, unfortunately, a lot of the world wasn't sure where their alliances stood politically at that point. So the U.S. was really trying to have a strong connection to that part of the world. And so The Three Caballeros was created during that period. It has really interesting animation. It has really fast and quick stories that are kind of interspersed with some slower stories. So it has a nice pace to it. And it also, I think, does a really nice job of showcasing Donald's range of talents. So it's a very interesting film, and I think that it is underrated. You should definitely check out The Three Caballeros. Hopefully this has made you a little bit more art smart, and you have 3 films that you haven't looked at the same way before that you should go back and check out. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.